Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. I'm 2 minutes late. Probably have to get a yellow card. But you know what? I'll make it up to you because the Podfather's in town. Don't say I don't do nice things.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Good evening, squaddies. Welcome back to Squad Central. Many of you will be listening on replay, watching football, and to those listening on our audio platforms, Apple and Spotify, we also appreciate you joining and making us part of your day. Yesterday, I give you Clive Palmer, the Velvet Voice, and tonight I give you the Podfather, Mr. Andrew Mangan. Welcome back to Squad Central.
Thank you, Sophie. How are you? I hope you're well, and hello to everybody watching / listening, the lucky people who don't have to see my face on the audio. Special hello to you guys.
You know, Andrew, as you are, and I say this, aging, right? And I mean that in the best way. You're looking cooler. And I don't know if the last time I spoke to you, but you look like you should be in Guy Ritchie's second season of The Gentleman. You've got some vibe going. I mean, what's the secret? What's the Irish secret? What are you not telling us here?
I think it's just basically male pattern baldness, and maybe some very, very, very slight Jason Statham vibes. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. But if you want to call me up and give me a role in that, I'll absolutely take all that money, no problem.
I'll put in a good word for you if I cross paths with him. I actually, when I was a publicist in the entertainment industry, I worked on Snatch and did the PR for Snatch internationally. Right. And he is one cool motherfucker. He's really sorry about that. Damn, shouldn't have done that. Sorry, Apple. Sorry, Spotify. But I'm with Andrew here. He swears all the time, so I think we're good to go. He's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool guy. But I digress, Andrew. I've got you here.
Sure.
And Clive was here last night. He says hello, by the way.
Well, Clive.
I want to get stuck into a different type of conversation with you tonight. But before I do, I asked Clive at the top of the show yesterday the roller coaster ride of that Newcastle game and the outcome being the total opposite of our PTSD and fears. Can you just give me your experience of at 1-0 thinking, oh man, the shit's going to hit the fan again. Here we go. The narrative, everyone's going to point the finger. Here come the darts.
I mean, listen, I won't lie. It did occur to me. We've gone there the last couple of seasons and lost 1-0. I suppose where it differed for me was that when we lost last season and the season before, I couldn't find very much encouragement in the way we played. I think the two performances in the previous 2 seasons away at Newcastle were really, really poor. Whereas I thought in the first half an hour, Arsenal were really, really good. Really good. You think of the chances we have. If Nick Pope doesn't have a worldie of a game, if Trossard's shot is half an inch one way, if VAR wasn't a complete mess and allowed the penalty, there was obviously a penalty. And that, of course, people forget about that. It wasn't just that we were denied a penalty. We were denied the first goal of the game, or potentially the first goal of the game. And we all know how important the first goal can be in a game like this, So I did worry a little bit, but I found enough to be encouraged about in the first half performance. Maybe would have liked us to turn it around a little earlier than we did, but actually I think the way we did turn it around, the fact that we did it so late was like a dagger to their heart, and a dagger to the heart of a certain co-commentator on Sky Sports, if people were watching on there. I think there's something to take from that, however you turn it around against Newcastle 1-0 away from home, it's always going to be good. But when you leave it that late, it's sort of whatever the opposite of scratching at old wounds is, you're sort of healing the scars, if that's the right way to put it, because we've had some awful times there, and they've left us feeling angry and frustrated and deflated. And I think it was quite the opposite at the end of that game on Sunday, where, you know, I was so angry about the penalty. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, come on. You know, we really, really needed that. We really needed that, I think, not just to beat Newcastle, but also to sort of put an end to this sort of early part of the season. You know, the 6 games that I think we will have looked at as kind of like their own little stretch of games, you know, with United away, Liverpool away, City at home, Newcastle away, tough. And I think that's probably where there was a little marker. And to finish off that little group of games with 3 points and a big win, I think was really, really, really important, not just for the team, for Mikel Arteta, but I think for us as fans as well.
Yeah.
A big win.
Totally. And to only be 2 points behind Liverpool after that initial fixture list where we all were like, oh, damn, you know, before the season even started, if we can come away from this with, you know, okay, we lost to Liverpool and some people kind of rue the day. It happens. They're champions. We were playing at Anfield. We don't do great there. A point against City. I was saying, like, it doesn't matter if they're shit now. It's their pedigree and culture, Andrew, isn't it, that you're also playing against in some ways. I want to circle back there, but you mentioned something about the manner in which we won. And for me, I think it represented this opportunity as a culture shift. You know, we saw the late goal from Reece Nelson against Bournemouth, the Eddie Nketiah goal, you know, against Manchester United at the Emirates as well. You know, champions kind of behave in this way. We saw the United team in the 90s, whether it's Fergie time, referee time, whatever it is, those late winners used to piss everybody off. Liverpool started doing it at the start of this season as well. And I think that late goal sent not only a message to Liverpool and the league, but within ourselves. I think we proved that this belief and this never give up attitude is a culture shift. Now, how does that marry with kind of Mikel this season versus the 2 that we almost won the title last year, which was kind of full of adversity, and the emergence of Andrea Berta and these new signings? I've always felt like we've had a good culture, but our mentality, I think, is where we've been let down, Andrew.
I think I would disagree with that, Sophie, to be honest.
Right.
I think, you know, the season where we almost won the league, we scored late goals. I think that was there. I think we had it. And where I think part of what made last season was so frustrating was we just didn't have it. We didn't have the squad for it. We didn't have the players for it. We had all the injuries, as you know, and you know, Saka and Odegaard and Havertz and Jesus. You know, when you're getting to the business end of the season and you're looking at your bench, and with all due respect to Raheem Sterling and to young academy players who aren't ready, I just don't think we had what it took last season in terms of the squad and the players available to us. Look at the bench for our second leg semi-final against PSG in the Champions League. Look at our bench. It's crazy.
It was pathetic.
It's crazy, you know? And I think, you know, even with that in mind, the team deserve a lot of credit for getting that far in the Champions League, because it's not something that we do. I just don't think we had it. I don't think it was a case that we needed a culture shift. I think we just lacked the tools. We lacked the players. We lacked the squad depth. You know, you mentioned Liverpool doing it this season. They absolutely have. They I think, apart from their opening game of the season, they won their next 4 games by a single goal, and they scored late goals in all of those games. If you exist on those fine margins, you run the risk of what happened at Selhurst Park on Saturday. You come out the wrong end of it, you know? And what people were saying about Liverpool was, this is the mark of champions. And maybe it is, and maybe that's the grace you get when you've won the title, right? The season before. People will look at that and say, that is what champions do. That's what title winners do. Arsenal just did it on Sunday against Newcastle, and there weren't too many people saying that about Arsenal. There weren't too many people giving us that credit to go there against that team, a really difficult team to play against, and saying, you know, that's the mark of champions. I think what was really interesting, I don't know if you saw it or not, was on Sky Sports afterwards, where the interviewer asked Mikel Arteta afterwards, is this like a statement win for the rest of the Premier League or for everybody watching? And he said, no, it's a statement for ourselves to believe that we can do this, because we didn't really do it last season. We fell short of where we should have been last season for all kinds of reasons. We don't need to go into them, but we fell short. And I just think that for him and for these players to be able to go and turn a game like that around in the final stages with, by the way, huge contributions from our bench, as we saw last weekend against Man City with Martinelli off the bench, as we saw in Bilbao, a game that's slightly forgotten, but Trossard and Martinelli off the bench, goal and assist each for those guys. And who came off the bench at the weekend? Mikel Merino scores the header to equalize, who is instrumental in our final 10-15 minutes being really, really good. Martin Odegaard, who gets the assist for the Gabriel goal. Martin Odegaard. This is not a bench with Raheem Sterling and young kids on it anymore. We have the tools to be able to do this. Do you want to do this every week? Please no. Give us some relaxation. Try and be a bit convincing, but I think if you get to the stage of a game where it becomes necessary, do you now believe that Arsenal have the ability to do that? And I think Sunday was a big tick in that box for me.
Yeah. Before Sunday, Andrew, were you concerned that maybe Mikel hadn't adapted to having more in his toolbox? Or do you think that's just a myth? Do you think that's, Liverpool and City lineups were just Mikel being Mikel and thinking too much of the opposition versus our own game, giving the opposition too much respect? And did Sunday actually bust that myth and show, he's understanding now? Halftime subs are okay. Yankee plays with 30 minutes to go is okay. What's your take on that?
Yeah, maybe he does have these tools at his disposal. He's got to use them. I think the City and Liverpool games are really difficult ones to analyze outside the context of how good those teams have been over the last couple of years. And I think there is a very fine line between respecting the opposition and playing your own game. And I think where Arsenal have been dismantled in the past is focusing too much on the game that we want to play when we play these big teams. I wrote about this a little bit last week or the week before, I can't remember, but when Arteta first came to Arsenal, we go to Liverpool and get turned over. We go to City and get turned over. We go, these guys, the gap was huge. And I also think that Mikel Arteta, by the way, was a player under Arsene Wenger when the instruction was, don't worry about the opposition, go out and play your own game. And how many times did we get 4-5 at Anfield against us? How many times did we, that 6-0 at Stamford Bridge? Those games, I think, have left a real mark on Mikel Arteta. So I'm a bit more understanding of his approach to those particular games, because I think they have left a mark on him as a player and as a manager. But where I think we saw some, if you want to call it adaptation or progress, whatever it is, when we went to Newcastle, when you could probably make a very good case that against a really physical midfield, Zubimendi, Rice, Merino is maybe our most physical midfield, and we could fight fire with fire in that regard. He did play Eberechiesa there. And I think that was really, really important for the way we played and how good we were in that first half in particular. And the way it sort of changed the dynamic, because Newcastle did very little in that game. They scored the goal, but apart from that, I can't really remember David Raya having to make a save. I know there was that moment early in the first half or second half, but they were offside, as it turns out. But apart from that, Newcastle did not threaten, and that's not the way those games have gone for us. And so I think Newcastle were maybe expecting a slightly different approach from Arsenal, and Arteta, said, listen, we brought Eze on at halftime against Man City, and we brought Saka on. and it changed the dynamic, and Arsenal were completely dominant in the second half against Man City without necessarily creating the opportunities you would have liked. So maybe that gave him the confidence to say, okay, away at Newcastle, where based on our record and based on what you expect from Newcastle, the way they play and how they're going to try and hurt you, and I mean that physically as opposed to with the ball, you know, the temptation to go with a big, strong team, I get it, but I'm really glad that he didn't. I'm really glad that he went with Eze. And I think we have not unlocked something. Maybe he's unlocked something in himself, but we've unlocked something in terms of an approach that we can take into games like this now.
Yeah, and you know, we all talk, and you know, we have our opinions. That's why we podcast and stuff like that. But we don't actually even know if he laid out a plan to say, "Look, I'm gonna play this way against Liverpool and City, and then I'm gonna, you know, get out a bit of a joker from my back pocket because everyone's going to assume I'm going to go conservative again against Newcastle. Haven't scored a goal up there in 3 games, and we're breaking ducks, and I kind of like that in seasons where." And we did it in 22, 23, 20, you know, 24, 22, 23, 23, 24. We were starting to break ducks, and it feels like, you know, those are the types of seasons where you win titles. With Mikel, and I wonder why this is, Andrew. And I don't want to get into the kind of media bashing and all that type of stuff, but I don't ever think Mikel's going to get any respect from anybody until we win the title. And even then, I don't know if he will get it. Look, I've been critical in the past. There was a time where I absolutely didn't believe in the man and the manager. And there's nothing better than being proved wrong as a fan. And it's undeniable kind of where we're at and the level that we're competing at. We may not have won yet, but the fact that we're the only team that have been challenging Liverpool, Manchester City is amazing. When you look at the way modern day football is played, Pep does it, Maresca does it, Slot to a lesser extent, but even lesser teams, this possession obsession type of strategy that everybody's using. But I also think he's a trailblazer because I don't know if you agree, but I've seen David Raya be playing a lot more longer balls. And I think that started in the semi-final of the Champions League. The long throw-in, the set pieces. You know, now the long throw-in is back. It's on vogue again. You know, even though the ref tried to take away the towel from Calafiori like a child the other day. Do you think that he is that trailblazer kind of manager, but he's just not getting the respect because he hasn't won? And when others are doing it, he's the one that keeps getting it in the ear for being negative.
I think there's no question that he is a highly talented tactical coach who will do whatever he thinks is right to win a game. You mentioned Raya. It was quite interesting on Arseblog. Lewis Ambrose, our tactics guy, wrote a piece about the Newcastle game, and he picked out David Raya, who played the fewest medium-length passes he has ever played in a Premier League game since joining the club. You'll probably remember that Raya went long a lot in this game, and that was part of the tactical plan that Mikel Arteta had. And if people want to go and read it, there's some very interesting stuff about Leandro Trossard and some of the positions that he was taking up, which probably don't make too much sense until you watch the game back. So I think he is, you know, every player that goes there, whether it's Declan Rice talking about how much he learns, whether Eberechi Eze talking about how his mind is being stretched by what Mikel Arteta wants from him as a football player in this Arsenal team. I think we have to understand that players are going there. Players like William Saliba, who could go anywhere in the world, are saying, I'm going to stay at Arsenal to work with this group of players, but work with this manager. So I think there's no question that he is a really talented and very highly technical tactical coach and manager. I think your point about him not getting respect until he wins is probably right. I don't think externally he is particularly popular. I think he gets maybe a bit of a bad rap for me. I think he's always pretty honest about what he says. He doesn't court controversy in his press conferences. Like every time he's asked about the opposition in a press conference, whether it's the team that's bottom of the table or whether it's the team that's top of the table or somewhere around, he'll say they're a great team. They play really well. They've got a great coach. I've been very impressed with them. Like he gives nobody any ammunition for anything apart from maybe some touchline antics. But then you just get people who get fixated on him being out of his technical area. But the reality is when you're at a club like Arsenal, when you've come as close as we have, people will question you until you win the big prizes and until you win the big trophies. And, you know, I don't think you can ignore the fact we've come really close. I don't think you can ignore the fact that we are a very, very good team. I don't think you can ignore the fact that when we go to Liverpool, the champions, maybe we respected Liverpool when we went there, but Liverpool respected us. Look at the way that game played out, you know. They had hardly any shots, you know. So I think it is the next thing for him, obviously, is to win something big, and hopefully he can do that this season. I would love that for all of us as Arsenal fans. But
Andrew,
yeah.
I just wanted to step in there, just sorry to interrupt, but in terms of what you're saying, because I was talking to Max Rushton from The Guardian and on his TalkSport show on Sunday, and they were trying to kind of goad me into saying negative stuff about Mikel, of course. But I said to him, because they asked the question, and I wonder, like, what I thought Mikel was unlikable about 3.5 seasons ago. There was something about him, and Rebecca Lowe was someone I spoke to about this, and, you know, through her NBC interviews and stuff. She just said, like, he hadn't learned yet how to handle the media, how to warm to the media, so the media warms to him. As you know, it always helps. But I think that he's become a little bit more charismatic, and I just wonder, why do you think people hate him? Because he's not like a dick. I mean, some people may think he is, but the sideline antics, most modern day managers are mental on the sidelines. I know he says batshit crazy stuff, and that's what I said to Max. I said, maybe it's because he comes out after losing the semi-final of the Champions League saying we're the best team in Europe. Maybe it's because he comes out and says the 1-1 against City was better than the 5-1. Is that why people... because there's a lot of hate towards him.
I've forgotten that about the PSG thing. Yeah, I mean, occasionally, listen, like any manager, I think heat of the moment stuff you can say, and it sort of follows you around a little bit. I think, genuinely, when he talks about Arsenal, when he talks about our players, when he talks about his ideas and ambitions for the club, I find it very hard to argue with anything he says. I think he is a very kind of cold, not cold, but very intense kind of a guy. Like I sort of understand why people don't warm to him particularly. I think if he was the manager of another club, we'd probably, you know, have our own opinions or different opinions than we might have. I don't know. I think that, you know, there's something about Arsenal as well, historically about Arsenal, Sophie.
Yeah, from the George Graham video, right? When even Super Kev was up against that wall, and
well, I mean that too. But I think it goes back maybe a bit more to the Arsene Wenger era as well, when the perception of Arsenal was at that time, you know, we were only the second club to have a foreign manager after the guy at Villa. Is that right? Am I right? I think it was the guy at Villa.
Say that again. Sorry, I was looking at a question. Say that again for Villa? What?
Whatever the guy's name was, he was the manager at Villa, but Arsene Wenger was only the second.
Martin O'Neill. Was it Martin O'Neill at the time? No. Well, the foreign guy. Okay,
yeah.
The squaddies will let me know.
Dr. Joseph something, I can't remember his name. Anyway, I think Wenger was only the second foreign manager in the Premier League. And then we had all these French players come in. And then I think this perception of Arsenal as a foreign club.
Venglos.
Venglos, Dr. Joseph Venglos, that's the guy. So, you know, this sort of goes back to that. And I think the way Arsene was treated at times in the media was really bad. It was over the top, certainly more than he ever deserved. And I think that sort of carried on a little bit. And maybe the only way to shut people up and the only way to stop that criticism is to go and win things. You know,
Yeah.
go and win the Premier League, go and win the Champions League. Then you can say whatever you want, you know. But listen, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion on the manager, and everyone's entitled to their opinion on what he says and how he says it. You know, I generally speaking, I like the way he talks about what he wants for Arsenal and what he wants to achieve at Arsenal, and that for me is at the core of you know, everything that he does. He doesn't always get everything right, of course he doesn't, but I think we are now in a far better place than we were a few years ago, and you know, I think that's worth bearing in mind.
I'm going to ask you a question because I've got a couple of tough cookie listeners that are putting a couple comments in, and I want you to be able to answer this because
Sure.
you know, Super Kev always used to be called, you know, Mr. Esquire, Arteta's lawyer. I mean, he used to eat it up and love it. And I know you came into some criticism after the event. I mean, you guys get Mikel Arteta there. I know that I said I would have liked, you know, some tough questions, but at the same time, you guys literally had 5 minutes with him. And I just don't think people understand what media means sometimes and the realms that you have to work in. But I always think that you're super candid and honest and you're unafraid. And if anything, I think James has asked some really tough questions in recent presses, including an ex-player who's no longer with us anymore and is currently in Spain. I won't say his name. What do you say to people like a couple of my listeners, like others who like Andrew's never going to criticize him? You're too close to the club. There's a reason why you're the podfather as well, but do you think that's fair or foul that people think that?
I think people are perfectly entitled to their opinions. If people read what I write and if people listen to the podcast, the idea that I've never been critical of Mikel Arteta is ridiculous because, you know, you can critique and you can analyze. I think it's all to do with how you do that. I think we live in a world where maybe some people don't think you're critical unless you're shouting and screaming and ranting and raving. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I do. And it's not what I never have, as you know, yeah. I never have. I was critical of Arsene Wenger, but I was respectful of Arsene Wenger when things were bad. With regards to the event at Union Chapel, that was Mikel Arteta taking a moment ahead of the final home game of last season to say thank you to the crowd who were at that event, who were a big part of raising 350, 400,000 pounds for the Arsenal Foundation. It had nothing to do with me or James or Elliot or Clive or Tim or Paul, who are part of the Arsenal Vision podcast. We were asked if that was something that we would like for those people. It wasn't for us. It was for those people. And Mikel Arteta came on stage and said, thank you, because people raised a hell of a lot of money for a brilliant cause. And we didn't have, this wasn't a Q&A with Mikel Arteta. This wasn't him in the spotlight. It wasn't the platform or the moment for me to grill him about something that he had no time to answer or anything like that. So listen, people can think what they want. For the people that were there and who helped raise that money, that was a very special moment because the manager of Arsenal Football Club came out to say thank you to them. Yeah. Does that mean we just, you know, softball Mikel Arteta or don't criticize things he does? People aren't listening or they're not reading if that's what they think.
I agree with that. And I think that's a societal issue as well, whether it's political news or sports or whatever, Andrew. People are only headline readers now. They don't read the full article. Kind of inspired by you a little bit on our website, we've started to do, articles. We were focused more on audio and video for such a long time because I it was something that ignited in me. It's like, I still love to read. There are a lot of people out there that love to bloody read, and reading is a good thing. But life now is like in sound bites. It's almost like it's become a shot of vodka, not a glass of wine. And I agree. I agree with you. And I think the reason why you kind of are so evolved and advanced in your blog and your Askcast and everything is because you still respect kind of the old medium, but have embraced the new as well. And I know for us Generation Xers, that isn't easy. And yeah, you've never been a yeller or a shouter, but I had to ask the question because they do. And I'm always going to be, candid about stuff like that.
I'm quite happy to answer those questions. I just think that there is, there's a way of saying things, and there is a way of criticizing decisions that isn't like, the world is too angry as it is. I go back and read what I wrote about the Manchester City game. I think, we should have played somebody other than Mikel Merino in that game. That's criticism of the manager's team selection. It doesn't have to be a tirade. It doesn't have to be a rant. He doesn't get everything right. He does make mistakes, like every football manager. I make mistakes. I get things wrong on my website. I have opinions that turn out to be incorrect. That's just the way the world works. So yeah, I'm more than happy to always answer questions about that. But look, as you know, Sophie, I've been doing this a long time. The only thing I ever am, whether it's on the blog or on the podcast, is honest. I'll tell you what I honestly think about this game, this player, this match, this situation, this scenario. And if I'm right, good. If I'm not, I'll hold my hands up to that as well. But I can guarantee you 100% it's my honest opinion, and it's never ever influenced by anything external.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being so candid about that again. And you and I've been talking football for I don't know now, since 2010, 2011.
Sure.
And I always enjoy that we can have that honest exchange and stuff.
Can I make one more point as well? Yeah. We were there in LA, and we've met there, and the idea of proximity to a football club is beneficial to someone like you or someone like me in those moments where you can have a relationship with certain people at the club, in communication, PR, and those kinds of things, right? Because it informs your view of things. Right. So when you're at a press conference, when you see the players in training or whatever it is, those are things that sort of expand your horizons. Right. So for the readers, for the listeners, people at Arsenal. I know people at Arsenal. That all plays into how we communicate, whether it's on a podcast or whether it's with the written word.
Yeah. And that's not to say that we're always they piss us off too. You could write to someone there or and then you were like, 2 months later, I just came across your email. Really? Oh, that's nice. But yeah, and it's my opportunity to put my picture up with me and Josh. You should see the one with me and Mertesacker. It's like Jolly G. He's the giant, and I literally look like a character from Game of Thrones, Andrew.
You forgot your high heels that day, Sophie.
I did. I always wear. I even wear my stilettos when I do the dishes, but on that day I was not. And you're right. And Gunnar Russ, I kept this up because he goes, my club is making me proud to be a Gunnar again. Even Kroenke has stepped up at long last. And Gunnar Russ was very critical of Kroenke, and he's just retired. So he's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, Andrew, as well. And one of the people I know we've both had the opportunity to talk to, Tim Lewis and Adu, but things are changing and evolving. And I wanted to get your take on what this means from your perspective for the club. The hierarchy has shifted. I always laugh because people who think that the Kroenkes don't care about winning is just such bullshit. They're desperate to win. I think these changes are indicative of we've invested a lot, and now we need to bring the bacon home and the ROI. What do you think these changes actually mean? And then what do you think they mean for Mikel at the end of this season?
I think what they mean is that Arsenal is now, I don't want to say Josh's club. I don't think that's the right way of expressing it, but you know what I mean? I think that this is a sort of a board and an executive that is maybe more aligned with Josh Kroenke than previously, There's people brought in from KSE. As we know, Tim Lewis has gone out. Ben Winston has been appointed to the board, which I think, somebody who works in media, Sophie, you might find that an interesting appointment if you think about how football and football coverage is going to evolve over the coming years. Maybe not in the very, very short term, but, are we going to get to a point where the traditional broadcasters like Sky, like TNT Sports, or whatever iteration of TNT Sports, whether it's BT or Premier or Satant or whatever it is, that other one, maybe we get to a point where we have to go a different direction, or the game goes a different direction, or clubs go in a different direction. I thought that was a really interesting appointment, for somebody who's involved in TV and film in that way. It sort of suggests a bit of longer term thinking in that regard. I think as well, this is a board and an executive that is very much aligned with Mikel Arteta. I don't think I don't want to say it doesn't make any difference to him, but I don't get the sense that there's a lack of faith in Arteta, that there's a lack of belief in his ability to win the prizes that we all want him to win, and that the board and that the club have backed him to win, right? If Arsenal didn't think that Mikel Arteta was capable of winning those trophies, they wouldn't have given him £250 million to spend this summer. Particularly when we brought in about £3.50. we really didn't sell very well. So they backed him in a big, big way. And I don't think they backed him just for this season. They backed him for the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, to build a team that's capable of competing and winning things for the next 2, 3, 4 years. That's what I think they've done. There may come a point between then and now where they decide, okay, it's not going to happen for Mikel, and they might go a different direction. But I don't believe that this boardroom change puts any more pressure on Mikel Arteta than the previous one would have, But I do think elements of it are interesting. The other thing is as a property guy, isn't there, on the board, a guy with a big history of property development for KSE, and with all the stories about the new stadium, or the stadium expansion, I should say, or potential stadium expansion. I thought that was an interesting aspect of these new appointments too.
Yeah, I don't know if the property guy is associated with the property guy who's helping Stan and his brother-in-law, who bought the Denver Broncos, kind of regenerate the area in Denver, in the city, as well. So yeah, and Ben Winston, he's a trailblazer in entertainment and television, but also the key thing is here, and this is why I don't think Arsenal fans should be critical. He's a true gooner, this guy. Yeah. And we've wanted a fan. How many times have we heard either the ex-player or let's get a fan, let's get someone who's not just some random fan from North London, but a fan who can contribute and who can kind of be a visionary and maybe speak for us in many ways and be a voice for us in the boardroom as well, Andrew. That makes a huge difference.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, Tim Lewis was a fan as well, and is a fan. Is he maybe a bit less relatable to your average fan than Ben Winston? I would say probably yes. Just a little bit,
I mean, I love talking to Tim. I mean, loose lips sink ships.
Nothing to say there, but no, I with all due respect to Tim, Tim Lewis, he operates or has operated in, the top echelons of law and all that kind of stuff, so that's not where most where most people are. But Ben Winston has grown up an Arsenal fan and done his time on the terraces and in the stands and traveling around. So yeah, it is an interesting appointment in that sense.
I love it. I love kind of, I hope the potential of, Mikel and Berta can be this power duo in Europe, and that we end up, making all this count and winning. And you see the changes. You have to evolve in order to move forward. That's why I kind of wanted to, have this conversation about evolution versus revolution. It feels like Berta came in and the revolution was in the transfer market completely. Would you agree with that? It wasn't even an evolution. It was revolutionary this summer.
I mean, it wasn't
on the selling side, no.
No. Yeah, revolutionary, or just like, okay, we're just gonna go for it, just absolutely go for it, which they did with 8 new players. Nobody's ever seen a transfer window like that. I've never seen a transfer window like that. I don't think you have. And not just that, with the quality of the players that we brought in as well. When you look at those, guys.
We haven't even seen Nketiah play yet either.
No. He's got a little bit of an injury, but he's a player I'm looking forward to seeing play. And listen, they went for it. I don't think it was complicated. I'm not saying it's easy to go and do all those deals, but as a strategy, I don't think it was that complicated. It was like, get a load of good players in to give us the quality and the depth that we need to cope with a long season with injuries. And you could argue that, here we are 6 games in, Premier League games in, we've been able to do that. When Saka was out, we had Noni Madueke in. Havertz is out, Gyökeres has been up front, and Zubamendi's come in and been I think, impressive. It might take him another little while to fully hit his stride, but he's been very good. And then you've got these guys that, like, if anything happens to Raya, you've got Kepa. If anything happens to Zubamendi, you've got Rice, you've got Norgard. You've got these guys in there, who can really, really make a difference. And Eze, for me, was like the icing on the cake signing. What a player and what a talent. And I think maybe some of the signings, if people thought Mikel Arteta was into or in a kind of a comfort zone with his style of play or certain players, some of the players that we brought in this summer absolutely shake him out of that comfort zone, I think, which is that's a good thing.
Yeah, Gyökeres and Eze, I think, especially, talk about, manage out of your comfort zone, no doubt about it. Right, I'm going to get you out on a couple of quick fire questions from the listeners.
Okay.
Let's see. John wants to know, what would you prefer, Champions League or Premier? They ask me this all the time, and I hate this question, so I thought I'd ask you just because.
You know what? I'd love nothing more than to see Arsenal win the Champions League in my lifetime. Absolutely. I feel like this club needs the Premier League, though. After 21 years, I feel like we need the Premier League more. So I will go for Premier League. And at the end of the day, I think from a fan enjoyment perspective, wouldn't it be more amazing to sort of have the laugh over the Liverpools, the Man Cities, Man Uniteds, Chelsea's, the big clubs, and obviously also Spurs, who we can't put in that category. I think from a sheer enjoyment perspective, the Premier League would do it for me. But why not both? Why not both?
Do you know that's how I've started answering the question, Andrew. I'll take both. That's a good answer. This one from Hirsi Farah: can a midfield of Odegaard, Eze, and Rice thrive?
It can, but I'm not sure it's one we'll see that often. I don't think we will see it that often, but I do think it was interesting that in the final stage of the game against Newcastle, we had Odegaard and Eze and Rice on the pitch, and it was Odegaard who played deepest. And that was an interesting aspect to that performance and that win. So I think what we're looking at are combinations that might be in play for certain games or certain game states that aren't necessarily ones that are going to start a lot of games together, but might be very, very useful if you're trying to crack a game open, particularly in the second half.
Yeah, and this kind of falls into it for me. And no one's talking about how Zubi is completely different from and Jorginho. Are we learning to play in a different style?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, one of the other aspects that we didn't really touch on in the 6 games we've played so far this season in the Premier League is it's the fact that players are new and adapting. And Madueke's come in; he's still adapting, not to the Premier League, but to Arsenal. Gyökeres too, Zubimendi, Eze, you know, the ones that have played the most often. You know, there's still a period of adaptation and sort of getting those guys in to gel. I really like Zubimendi, I have to say. I think there's a calmness, there's a solidity to him. Defensively, I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. I saw him on Sunday out-jump Big Dan Burn to win a header. You know, I like what he's brought, but you know, it's early days.
Yeah.
And I think he will become more influential as he settles in more.
This is more of a statement from El Boogie One. Hey, Andrew, greetings from New York City. Your pod is the best thing that I look forward to weekly. I always figured you were a baldy from your voice. Gracias, Sophie. Great job, guys. Yes. How about them apples?
Well,
like that.
Hello to El Boogie in New York City. I wasn't always bald. I still had the voice, but I wasn't always bald. But there you go.
Charles, I think we talked about this one, about the Arsenal fan base, most reactionary fan base, or is it football in general? I think there's a lot of influence that kind of inspire that reactionary stuff, and Andrew kind of touched on that as well. Vinny's going to get involved now because his friend's here to visit, so it could get loud, everyone. I'm just warning you. Why don't we do this then, because Vinny's going to go nuts. I'm sure the audio listeners will love that. Andrew, I wanted to know your favorite 5 current players right now.
Oh my gosh, my favorite 5. Oh God, am I going to have to just start looking at the...
Have a think about it while I just open the door. This is all happening in real time, people.
That's okay. I'll keep talking here while Sophie goes to deal with the dog situation. My favorite 5 players. I'm looking at the squad list on Arsenal.com now. I've kept it going. Like a real pro.
I love you.
Here.
Thank you so much. Because you know why? Also, you totally understand that dogs are God and they come before anyone.
Listen, I think any podcast is better with a bit of dog background noise. Okay, I am going to go for my Eberechi, because I just love what he does. As a former central defender, I can't not pick Gabriel and William Saliba, because I think they're amazing too. And Jurrien Timber has really, really been impressive this season at right back. I think he's come on leaps and bounds. And I'm going to go with my final favorite player, Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka. I know it's we're waiting for him to get back to his best, but I think that will happen. So just to recap, if you weren't there the whole time, Sophie, I picked 3 defenders, and
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Perfect.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what moment was worse, this one of me right now, or Tom Canton trying to pick a winner for a competition he had on his podcast this morning that kind of went on for 20 minutes. It was bloody hilarious if you didn't catch Tom's show today.
Didn't get a chance.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I will go and have a look at that, because I don't quite know how it would take that long.
Well, I'm glad it was you in this moment and not Henry Winter, put it that way.
Okie dokie. Well, there you go. There's my phrase.
All right. So what's your parting shot, as you always know, before we close? I always ask you to leave a statement for the squaddies as you exit Squad Central. What do you want to say to our listeners?
I think that this is a very good Arsenal team. I think some of the criticism that is leveled at the club and the players and the manager maybe has a little bit too much of an influence over how people think. I think last season played a part in how people think as well. We've had maybe the most difficult start to a Premier League season that I can remember, and we're 2 points behind the leaders. We are in good shape. We've got a big squad. We've got players who can get better. we're keeping our best players, and there's good reason for that. You know, I think going back to the Saliba thing, if there's a lack of faith and you're a player like William Saliba and you want to win, you can go anywhere and win because you're that good. You know, there's only a few clubs you can go to that are better than Arsenal right now, or maybe have a better chance of winning than Arsenal right now, but you do it. And I think look at what our players are saying by committing the best years of their career to this football club. Not just William Saliba, Gabriel, hopefully Bukayo Saka too. You know, look at the players who want to join us, who have joined us. That tells you a lot about what we're capable of and what the potential is. And I understand when, you know, you lose to Liverpool, you almost come off on the wrong end against Man City. I get it. It makes us anxious. It makes us concerned. But look at what we did against Newcastle, and that answers some questions. And there's a long, long way to go. And I think these guys are super motivated. They're really, really good. And I hope that this year, much like the last time we finished second 3 years in a row, the next season we went and won the league. So hopefully a little bit of history repeating there.
I like it, Mr. Superstitious Andrew. And you said something, you know, about Saliba, and you mentioned it earlier in the show, as well as all the great signings we've made, Andrew, to re-sign Saliba, to re-sign Big Gabby, to you know, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Waneri. You know, as important as these new people were, you don't want to lose players like we have done in the past and not be able to kind of just build on what we've got that goes back to that strong bench that you were talking about and comparing to PSG too. So yeah, brilliant stuff. What have you got coming up with old James? What's next for you guys?
I don't know. It's just kind of non-stop at the moment, isn't it? Because all the games are coming thick and fast. So, you know, we'll continue our regular schedule, you know, on the main site and over on Patreon, all the extra stuff that we do over there. But with Champions League, it's sort of like the players is just match recovery, then podcast. Yeah, all of the stuff that people want to find, they can find it on the site. And yeah, our apps have just been updated. So if you want to get the Arseblog app on iOS or Android, there's new versions out, which are, you know, upgraded things a little bit as well. So hopefully people know where to find.
I didn't even have time to ask you about Champions League and Premier League, but you know, I'm sure we'll be at Olympiacos tomorrow, hopefully. And West Ham, the new manager bounce kind of happened yesterday, so I'm hoping we'll be okay as well there, Andrew.
Fingers crossed. I hope so too.
Squaddies, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back after the match tomorrow, and then on Thursday we have Le Gros popping into the studio as well. But for now, thanks to Andrew. Please go follow him if you've been living under a rock. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them, and at ease, everyone, at ease.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.